Hello everyone and welcome to this video, which is in our human game series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and as promised, here is another game from the Hastings Chess Congress, which is currently ongoing. This was a fantastic game, played in round 3 by the English player Alex Golding against the French Grandmaster Pierre Laurent-Paoli, who at the time of me recording this has played really well and is deservedly leading the tournament with 5 out of 6. This was a game actually where we started, we looked at the very opening in the commentary, and then somehow because of the fog and everything, a lot of our audience had to leave, so I just ended up just walking around the tournament hall, caught sight of this one, and then just sat down and just analysed. It was really interesting. As you'll see, I found some interesting things, but actually Pierre played better than the things that I saw during the game. So just have a look at this. It's really good game. So what's the opening? The opening is in principle Black's offering a Sveshnikov system here. So white can play knight db5, d6, bishop f4, e5, bishop g5. It's a move order that that offers some stuff and avoids some stuff. It's basically, what possibilities do you want to give to white along the way. This line has got quite popular, and a very popular way of avoiding the main Sveshnikov is to play this move: knight takes c6, b takes c6, e5. Knight d5 and knight e4, and it's always been one of those openings that looks absolutely horrific for black to me, but somehow black can keep things afloat. That white centre on e5 is gives some opportunities to black for counterplay. So black played the move queen c7. f4. In some ways that move queen c7 seems to help white. After all, white is solidifying the pawn on e5. On the other hand, it does weaken this diagonal and gives black some chances. And here black played the interesting move rook b8. Queen b6 has been played an awful lot. Actually, I've got quite a lot of familiarity with this line, because I looked at this line probably 2 or 3 years ago with a view to including it in the book for the TCEC super final. In the end, I think I rejected it because I didn't think that it was going to guarantee enough winning possibilities. But a very interesting line indeed. Alex played the most critical line here, c4, hitting the knight. And now bishop b4 check, and there's a bit of a crossroads here. The most challenging move, I guess, for black is the move king e2. And the big problem there is that what is black to do with the knight on d5. This is a very typical idea. We'll see it in the game. f5, looking for a counterattack on the knight on e4. Basically, if the knight moves back, then you can consider moving the knight away from d5. You don't want to move the knight from d5 immediately, for example, because of moves like knight d6 check. But after f5, actually white has to move knight d6 check. And if bishop takes d6, I take on here, and then afterwards I'm going to take the pawn, the knight on d5. So what black has been playing is the sacrifice castles. And now c takes d5 is normal. You can also throw in a3. I ran lots of engine games at the time, just to see what the engines thought about it. An awful lot of draws, basically. But this was the main line: c takes d5, c takes d5, knight g5. And now, there's many possibilities here. d6 was what Leela was playing, tending to lose at the time against Stockfish. f6 was played in a TCC match, a testing match between Leela and Scorpio back in 2019. Led to a draw in the end. And h6, knight f3, f6 has been the main choice of engines recently. I'll just show you some typical game that we got. Takes, bishop h4, bishop f6. As you can see, it's a little bit hard to sort of understand. I mean, basically, white's just finding it hard to get free, and black's, sort of keeping pressure. But I don't know. I sort of wonder somehow, how easy it is for black to play this position, because it's not like you've got a direct attack against the king. It's just because you're active and you're gradually picking up pawns that that you're doing well. Kind of difficult to play, I think. But yeah, draws all over the shop in engine games. So that's that. So, but one possibility that's been played a little bit recently is the move King F2. Now, yeah, I mean, black's got a couple of possibilities. I think Queen B6 first was the engine preference, but it doesn't really make any difference to the essence of it. I mean, white's idea is that after castles, takes, knight G5, your king's much better on F2 than E2. It's not blocking in the bishop on F1. So, yeah, in principle, this should be a better version for white. Although, yeah, Stockfish was managing to hold the draw as black, but Torch wasn't managing to hold the draw against Stockfish as black. So, yeah, presumably it's much more towards white's advantage than King E2. But what black can do here is play the move F5, because obviously after knight D6 takes, we've got this move Queen B6 check because the king's on F2. So yeah, the knight can then move to F6 and we can go knight E4, and black's doing pretty well there. So white played C takes D5. This was Torch's choice as well. F takes E4 and D6. D takes E6 looks a little bit wrong somehow. I think we were looking at castles in the commentary room, but Pierre suggested D5, and that's what the engines want as well. And just basically looking pretty good for black. If takes, you take with the bishop on D6, and you're looking for bishop F4, and this bishop is tied to the B2 pawn because of rook B2. There's a lot of counterplay happening for black. So D6 is natural, and now Pierre played a novelty here. This is basically where we left it at the commentary room. And then when I walked down, I was surprised. I was expecting Queen B6, which had been played in a few games before, and it is the engine favourite. You go King G3 castles, and well, yeah, I mean the engines have got one very clear preference for white here, and it's to play the move H4 in this position. And the idea simply is always to play the king to H3 and the pawn to G3. The engines just want to have the king on H3, or be able to put the king on H3 in the end. And they think that that's the safest way. And what is this move H4 doing? Well, obviously it's, if you're going to put the king on H3, it's nice to have some pawn cover from the front, but it's also stopping this undermining G5, and we'll see a lot of that in the game as well. So that's the idea. And interestingly enough, after the move King A5, then the engines are pretty keen on the move G3 here. What's the idea? The idea is that if you play a move like Bishop C5 check, I'll go King G2, and I'll go H4, and King H3 again in this position. And yeah, I mean the idea is this structure is really solid, and then you're just going to start trying to get at the little black weaknesses like the pawn on E4. Also the fact that this bishop takes a little while to get developed. It's probably a little edge for white somehow, but nothing too terrible. White played the move King G3, which is okay. Castles, but now the engines were again looking to get the king out of the way and solidify that F4 pawn with G3. I mean, I think the other reason for wanting to play G3 and solidify the F4 pawn is that this rook is attacking the pawn on B2. So rather than have a bishop sort of dealing with the protection of both, it's nice to have a pawn to protect that. But white played the move Bishop C4, which is not silly in the sense that white might be looking to to play the move f5 at some stage, just to try and break things open. But it's a little bit loose somehow. It's not really addressing the actual pressing matter of actually making sure the white king is safe and that the white structure is solid. And well, black tries to refute this in a very dynamic manner. I was walking around the tournament hall at this stage, and I saw that Pierre was thinking for quite a long time. So I kind of got intrigued. I mean, the move bishop a6 is kind of the most natural somehow. That light square bishop is not so great for black, so exchange it, and we'll see what happens. And I think this was the main engine preference. And black's got ideas like g5, maybe move the bishop around, bring the rook in somehow. It's quite dynamic. This pawn is weak, but not easy. White's got some developing to do before he can start thinking about stuff like that. Because black was thinking for so long, I thought, well, that can't be it somehow. And then I got interested in the move bishop c3, and this was indeed what Pierre was thinking about and what he played in the end. So what's the idea of bishop c3? Well, I mean, the first obvious idea is that takes allows check there, picking up either the bishop or the rook on a1. So that is obviously pretty dangerous. And it's an interesting question as to what white is going to do about it, because not only is black threatening the pawn on b2, black's also threatening the move bishop takes e5, hitting the king on g3, which is why you realize why the engines were so keen to get this guy safe. The king on g3 is not safe at the moment. Spent quite a long time on it, and I decided that white's best move was queen e2 here, and I'm actually very proud of this, because the line that I thought was best play for both sides actually ends up being the line that the engine recommends. So that's bishop takes c5, takes, queen takes e5 check, king h3, and I was trying to work out how do I get some extra pressure on the white position. I mean, I could somehow look to take this one, but yeah, it doesn't feel 100% right. Rook f5, vaguely interesting, but I couldn't quite make it work. And then I came up with this move, rook b4, which is basically, we're attacking this bishop on c4, sort of tying the queen towards it, which makes it easier to sort of do stuff over on this side. And I thought that this was going to be quite powerful. And the line I came up with was rook f1, takes, e3, a3, and then queen h5 check. And I thought that this was going to be a draw by perpetual, because if king f3, we go queen f5 check. The engines also see that you can throw in rook a4 if you want first, but queen f5 check, and then you've got to go back to g3, because check, I've got queen c5, and king e2, I've got I could take and go rook f1. Queen g4 check would also be quite strong. So, queen f5, king g3, queen g5 check, I thought was a draw by repetition. I couldn't see any more, and the engines don't see any more either. They just say that this is, completely drawn. So that was pretty cool. I was pretty pleased about that. Was also quite surprised that that here white, after not so much thought, maybe, because I think Pierre has spent maybe 50 minutes or something calculating this. But white was probably trying to speed things up a bit and played the move rook f1. It just seems a little bit strange, because you're going to take on b2. I did wonder whether white thought that he could play rook b1 and get something like this somehow, maybe. I'm not sure really, but I mean, it just never really works, because there's just queen c3 check. At various moments, just hitting the king and also the bishop on c4. So this is just never going to work. I just wondered whether he'd missed that somehow, because obviously, just giving away, access to the 7th for black, plus giving away a pawn as well. And of course, clearing the pawn on b2 gives you queen c3 and stuff like that. It just felt like, ooh, this is a hell of a lot to give away somehow. If you can avoid it. Actually, the engines are saying -3 already, so it's it really was a bit of a blunder somehow playing rook f1. But wasn't completely clear to me watching the game, I have to say. I was thinking, well, you would have thought that this was quite good for black, but obviously this bishop on c8 is not super, and well, I mean, the white position feels loose and exposed, but yeah, lots of things could happen, right? Queen d4 was played, and then black played queen a3 check, bishop b3. And here Pierre played the actually the excellent move bishop a6. For some reason, I was looking for more somehow. I really wanted more than that, and I got very carried away with the move c5, and it's I mean, I do notice with myself that somehow I tend to I find I sort of keep on looking for stuff until I find a line that I think is sort of locked in several different ways, and then I say, yeah, that must be the best line. It's the sort of approach that you have in programming where you say, oh, well, if it compiles, then it works, and so. But actually, the lines I found were very nice, but actually none of them work. So what was the point of c5? Well, the idea of c5 was to play this move rook a2, which I thought was an absolutely gorgeous tactic. The bishop is pinned, and if rook a2, I've got queen b3 picking up a2. Unfortunately, the engine says rook b1, and white is better in this position. It's totally unfair, but if I go play the move c4, looking for something like queen c4, bishop a6, well, there's various things, but actually the engines are saying that f5 is the way to play. Takes. I was looking at this f5 idea an awful lot, but I hadn't realized it was so strong here. Rook f1, king g8, and now the gorgeous move d7, with the idea of bishop d7, queen a8 check with back rank mate. So actually the engines say that the best there is b2 check, rook f3, takes, bishop d7, here, and then you're going to just hold fortress-like the rook and bishop versus queen endgame. But yeah, it's not better for black at all. It's better for white. And the other sad thing was that after queen c3, I thought I had the move c4. And the idea is just to make it plain. After queen c3, the threat is the discovered attack of bishop takes e6 check. But I thought I had the move c4, queen c4, queen c4, bishop a6. So after queen c3, I cunningly allow you to play this move, bishop e6 check. Because I've got the move rook takes g2, and well, if you go king h3, I've got rook takes a2 check, picking up the queen, and even nicer, after king h4, I go rook check. You go king g4, I go h5, and if king g3, I've got rook h3 check, picking up the queen. So I thought this was absolutely lovely, and because it looked so gorgeous, I assumed that it was good. But again, I won't go into details; it's complicated again. But f5 again is what the engines want, just opening up that f file and causing chaos. So yeah, none of it was good. Actually, it was just throwing away the black advantage. So bishop a6 was much better and much simpler. And after rook c1. Bishop d3, just consolidating the e-pawn. Here you'll understand why the engines want the move h4, because the move g5 is getting very worrying for white. And I was trying to make this work all over the shop from these positions on, because the idea is f takes g, rook ff2, and we're coming around here. So h4 was the engine preference, and if h6, then h5, stopping this g5 at any cost and at least keeping the king stable. the king's position stable. But you understand again why, the engines wanted king h3 and g3. Really funny. So rook c3 was played, and here one of my spots was actually a little bit better than what Pierre played, just the first time, I think. Rook takes g2 check was possible, king takes and queen d2, and this is working. The key point is that after king g3, queen a1, you want to do something like rook d3, but then I've just got queen e1. And if you go to if you went to h3, it's pretty much the same. Queen a1, rook d3, I've got queen f1 there, so there's no way of doing this. So basically black's just completely winning here. It's completely over. But queen a6 actually was a very strong move. I thought actually originally that white had the move f5 in this position, with the idea if rook f5, I go bishop takes e6 and then d7. That was the idea. And I thought that rook h4, king h4 was going to be fine for black. But I suddenly realized actually that that queen a6 sets up another idea, which is bishop f1, really unpleasant. And, we're just going to get rook takes g2 check here. So, yeah, queen a6 was a very strong move as well. So rook c1 was played, and then queen b6, very unpleasant move, offering the exchange of queens. White played rook c5, and now there is a threat against the rook on b2, which you mustn't miss, and now rook e2 from Pierre. For some reasons, the engines want rook d2, but it seems very odd to leave the rook undefended. I mean, there must be a subtlety, of course, but rook e2, natural human move, and very, very strong. So bishop c4 was played by white, and here I was, my eyes were lighting up for g5, takes and rook f2 here. Just seemed worth doing somehow, because takes, white's cut the communication with bishop c4, so queen c5 is possible. But actually, it must be said that Pierre's queen d8 was, I think, leading to a force mate in 18 announcement or something from one of the engines. So I don't think we'll complain about that. One of the ideas actually is that black's threatening the move rook takes f4 here, and if king f4, then queen h4. So things are going very, very quickly here. White, a little bit desperate, played the move bishop takes e6, takes rook c6, and then queen e8, coming round to g6 there. And well, the final moves were more pleasant for black than for white, and I think that white resigned here. It's going to be force mate after this. So there we are. What a great game, right? Really interesting opening. And yeah, I mean, I really felt that black played it with a lot of controlled energy somehow. I mean, I was looking at all sorts of tactics, really trying to overforce things, really. And black just played it very nicely and kept control. And I think the only, slight inaccuracy there was the move queen a6 instead of rook takes g2. But well, I think queen a6 was still -3 or something, so not exactly a mistake somehow. But also I thought it was very interesting looking at it with the engines. First of all, my little tactical ideas were good, but somehow, yeah, they just don't cover the whole story somehow. And yeah, do notice this more and more with engines. I'm not sure whether I'm getting weaker or whether I'm just getting more ambitious somehow in my old age with tactics. But I also thought that this, the way that the engines were approaching the position about, first of all, consolidate the king, very shogi style somehow. Yeah, it's sort of making a good fortress for the king before you go and do something. Yeah, I thought that was very, very interesting. Hadn't really, sort of lit up for me in my head about that's how, white should proceed in the position. So very, very interesting indeed. But actually, very important game theoretically. And I think that, this move 13 queen a5 that Pierre played, it's not the engine's main move somehow, but when you put it on, I mean, the evaluation of queen a5 is not much different to queen b6, and actually pretty challenging as well. So really, really interesting. So there we are. I hope you're enjoying this little look at Hastings. I have to say, I mean, it's really worth watching it. The games have been really, really good, and there's been a lot of fighting spirit somehow. You know, even on the New Year's Eve, somehow, you know, people were fighting like lunatics to get wins somehow. So you know, really, really impressive. So do take a look at that. Starting again, yeah, in the next few days. Yeah, otherwise, you know, hope you're enjoying these videos and hope to see you for lots of next ones. Thanks for watching.